and I'll always be an engineer, but I'm a solutions architect now with 20,000 feet going, okay, this is the pieces, this is how it works. I write the requirements and they build everything and then it runs.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study series. On today's episode, we have Mike Harvey, who is the founder and principal of CMH Works, a company specializing in providing tailored IT solutions and consulting services for small and mid-sized businesses. With over 30 years of experience, 10 of those being in big tech, in the technology sector, Mike has built a reputation for delivering innovative and reliable services that help businesses navigate the complexities of the digital landscape, which is why we're excited to have him on the program. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So to get things started here, I'd love to kind of kick the ball down the field here, and maybe we'll start with a little bit of your background. If you could just give us a couple of minutes of who you are, where you came from, and how you found yourself starting CMH Works.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I started well, my very first job in IT was working for a point of sale company, which was interesting back in the early '90s. Um, but quickly from there, I moved and started. I'm from New York, so I went to work in Manhattan in the high rise for AOL for Time Warner at the time as an engineer. Quickly got moved up to a management position focused on infrastructure for Time Warner Corporate and all of its subsidiaries, Time Inc., Time Magazine, right? Warner Brothers, Warner Music, HBO, New Line, and had a lot of interaction with the CEOs at the divisions. And we were building corporate infrastructure to support the interoperability between those large companies who were very entrenched, very much older. Time Inc. at that time, I think, was 80 years old or something to that effect, but got a lot of exposure at a very young age. And so after a few years of doing that, it was probably 6 or 7 years I was there. The announcement of the AOL-Time Warner, the famous merger happened, which I was thrown into the middle of to try to get all of the divisions on board with using AOL as a business tool, which was not a very popular, not a very popular position.
Right.
But so post acquisition, they say nobody's ever going to get fired, but that's not true. Me and one other director were retained and moved down to AOL, and everyone else, and our teams were kept, but everyone else was canned. So they decided who was valuable, who wasn't. So then I started my career at AOL in the summer of 2000. 2001, sorry. And then spent 7 years at AOL, managing the global back office infrastructure at AOL. Had a fairly large team that was at the top. So from when I got to AOL to when I left AOL is when AOL lost all its value. So all my stock options were underwater and all that kind of stuff. So eventually it was got the golden parachute. And then because I was moved into the DC metro area, like everyone here, I took my shot in public sector and worked for a federal contractor for 7 years. And that was fun. But it wasn't for me because I was grown up in the private sector where the deals were a lot easier to make, right? The acquisition model in the federal government and all government for that matter is pretty arduous and painful. So when I left that and decided in 2014 to start consulting and just went out on my own, and CMH Works kind of grew out of that. So a lot of referral work for the first 5 or 6 years to grow my business. And here we are today. So that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, it's quite a colorful background, Mike. There's
Yeah.
a lot to unpack there. So I remember the whole AOL merger, and I also know that my father is still among the few people that have an at AOL.com email address, and so
Yeah.
it's really interesting to hear from somebody who was kind of part of that era and has since kind of moved on. So when it came to founding the CMH Works, I'm sure that a lot of the experience that you picked up in that first decade or so working for the big tech that lended itself to some of the work that you're doing there. I wonder if you could share a little bit about some of those transferable skills, what you brought with you over to CMH.
Well, when I was at Time Warner and I got promoted to the director level, my VP at that time told me that I was going to have to make a decision whether to go stay on the technical track or move into the management track. And I said, well, I'm going to do both. And the reason I'm going to do both is because I want to be able to call BS on my engineers and my technicians, right?
Mm.
So I've always coded. I've been coding my whole career. I still do to this day. I do that, A, to keep my skills sharp, and B, because I can evaluate the level of effort that things should take, right? If I can do it in a day and I'm not doing it all day, every day like you are, my engineers can't come back and say, oh, it's going to take 2 days. I'll say, why? I do it half as much as you and I can do it in a day, right? So,
Right.
I've always done that. And so I am by trade, I like to say I'm a solutions architect, meaning I start at the business requirements and work down because I don't believe you can implement effective technology unless you understand the environment and the business in which you're implementing it. So I learn my client's business as best as I can. In some cases, I know it as well or better than they do. At least the context of the things that we run. I may not know their shipping department or that kind of stuff, but the context of the applications and services we provide, I know extremely well. And that I think is one of the big things that separates us is, we're top down. We need to understand the domain, domain driven design type stuff, DDD as we call it. And then we design solutions and implement and host all of that based on that understanding.
So yeah. So when it comes to some of the day-to-day stuff that you're up to, I get a sense that you're a very hands-on kind of person where you like to be involved in it. You're on the front lines. You're getting messy with the rest of the crew. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm kind of split on that. So I'm a builder by nature. I
Mm.
build with my hands. I build with technology. I can build things out of wood, metal, whatever. I have a full shop next to my office where I can go out and tinker with stuff if I need to, or go build something. But I understand that as the owner of the business, as the face of the business, I need to be working on the business more than in the business.
Mm.
So part of the challenge with any business where the owner and founder is the technology fount, right? The
Mm.
person that has all of the tribal knowledge and all of the understanding on how things are designed, what services are where and why. It's hard to extract yourself from that and impart that tribal knowledge on somebody else and have them just run it while you build it, right? So that's always the challenge is, how much business development can I do if a good part of my time is in the weeds? But I love it, right? That's where I'm most comfortable. It's where I cut my, right. That's where I got my start is it. I was an engineer, right?
Mm.
And I'll always be an engineer, but I'm a solutions architect now at 20,000 feet going, okay, this is the pieces. This is how it works. I write the requirements and they build everything and then it runs. And sometimes I dive in and write code just to prove to them that I can still do it. And my rule has always been, as I've grown the business, I will divest something when I can find somebody that's as good or better than me at it. I won't let my clients suffer for a poor product or poor quality because I ran out of time. I'll work
Right.
more hours if I have to until I find that person that's better at it than me. And so that's kind of been the cardinal rule for the last 10 plus years now that we're in business.
Yeah, that's really powerful to still be as active as you are, but also understand that there's a part of your responsibility that is to continue to acquire the work. And the cool thing that I think I recognize in you is that you're a creator at heart, and being taken away from your I guess the easel, the proverbial easel of the thing that you're creating sometimes can be a difficult transition. So when you focus on the business development side of this and building the business out, what was your approach to kind of bridging that gap? Because I know at first it's like you got to do the work, you got to find the client, and then you got to do the work, and then you got to find the client. You're going back and forth, right? So where did you strike a balance?
Well, it's tough when you've seen everything twice or more.
Yeah.
When you're listening to a client's problems, you're already in your mind like moving to the answer, right?
Mm.
So I would have a discovery call with the client, and I have my people on with me who are not quite as knowledgeable as me, but I'm basically going, yeah, well, all you need to do is this, or we can do it that way, and I'm giving them the solution on the call as we're talking, and my people would say, you need to stop doing that, right? You're giving away your expertise for free, and some of these people can just take that and go and do what they want. And so what we so I really do enjoy designing the solution from the top down, and that comes from these calls with the clients, understanding the problem, trying to solve it, and the more we learn, the more effective we are at delivering something valuable. Right? I don't believe technology for its own sake has any value unless you're solving a business problem. There's really no point in it, right? And so what we started to do about a year and a half ago is we started to say, hey, look, and you got to have some barrier of entry when you're having these conversations. So you can do an intro call. And now what we do is we do like a 30-minute thing. We just want to understand your need. And essentially what we drive them to is an assessment, right? And it's a fixed cost. We ask questions, leave them a questionnaire behind, and then we write a technology assessment based on the problems and issues that they're having and things that we see. And this is really good for small businesses who have no IT capability at all, right? Any run-of-the-mill company. And so we give them that assessment, and along with it, then we give them a proposal. So we're qualifying their interest with some negligible amount. It's not a lot. It's, a couple $100. But it qualifies their interest. It's not just shoppers, right? It's somebody that actually has a problem. And we get a lot of these by referral. So we do technology, marketing, and IT security assessments. They're all different kinds of assessments, and they have a different kind of methodology in how we develop them. But I write most of the assessments, and I'm involved in the proposal side as well. So that's a creative piece of it. And then if we win the work, I'm basically defining all the requirements for the devs and engineers and to build. And then I'm ultimate QA. If it doesn't pass me, it doesn't go out the door because my name's on everything.
Right.
So that's how I do.
I get a sense that you enjoy the work that you're doing too, and I wonder, sometimes this is a difficult question to answer, but what sorts of challenges do you face then in terms of scaling this when you're the guy who is responsible for a lot of that top-down strategy or a lot of those sales calls and things like that? Like, how do you delegate, or how do you find a happy balance between being, hands-on with the client versus, developing the marketing or the outreach or the client development?
I fill my day with whatever the priority, whoever's screaming the loudest, usually. Engagement is tough, especially in this day and age. I'm from an older generation that, I was raised from an early age to be very self-sufficient, right? Fix your own stuff. If you can fix the dishwasher before you buy a new one. Not everything is disposable. And now my wife believes I can fix everything, and that's like a curse.
You made a mistake, Mike.
Yeah, I have to tell her some things are beyond fixing, but it's
Right.
rare, but that is true. So it's herding cats a lot. I think that's true in any business that gets bigger than a bread box, right? Once you're over 5 or 6, and we've always been totally remote. As an architect, I realized that I don't, everything we do for our clients is remote. Our clients don't need to come to our office. So the whole company is remote. And so the biggest challenge there is monitoring the activity and the productivity of each and every member to make sure that we're getting stuff done on time, right? And so there's a lot of kind of expectations from a performance standpoint. We communicate those constantly to everyone, and we don't have a very high tolerance for anybody failing in those areas, because a rising tide raises all ships, but that's on the good side. But on the bad side, if somebody's exhibiting bad behavior for the rest of the company, and other people kind of pick up on that and they think that that's acceptable, and you can't. So you got to have some standards that apply across the board at minimum, and you need to be willing to enforce those, even if it causes you pain temporarily where you may be short-staffed.
Yeah, I'm so present to that idea of the analogy of a rising tide lifts all ships is wonderful, except for when the ship has a leak. It doesn't matter what the tide's doing, the ship's going down. So it's important that all hands fix that problem, right?
Yeah, and you need to plug it, right? So if you got somebody who's not living up to the standards and they're a bad example, you got to fix that fast. And verbal warning, written warning, see it kind of thing is really all you can do, because you got to protect the culture above all things, right?
Right.
And if you're a culture of customer first, high quality, being responsive, being respectful, all the things that we all say in the HR nonsense training that we get, right? But those things are real, and those things have value in perpetuity, right? So if you can continually exhibit those behaviors, you're not going to lose clients, right? Your attrition rate's going to be low, and so you don't have to. And you're gonna get business kind of in the horizontal, right? You get an existing client, then you do more things for them instead of having to constantly replace a client because they're not satisfied with what you did, right? So we
Right.
rarely lose clients, and we're proud of that. Occasionally it happens, but it's very rare. And it's never because we didn't deliver on time, or we didn't deliver with the quality expected, or the expectations weren't clear. All of that's all manageable stuff. And if you're losing them for those reasons because you're not doing those things, then that's self-inflicted. You need to really look in the mirror about how you're managing your clients and their expectations.
Yeah. And then put on top of that the fact that you might be managing multiple pipelines as well, because I get that a lot of businesses have a heavy reliance on referrals, and I don't know if that's maybe your case, but um, aside from that, also there's like the organic search, or there's social media and content and things like that. And so when you have all of these inquiries that are coming in to you from multiple angles, how do you manage that level of communication?
The way we got our start was by adopting what we call orphaned applications, right?
Okay.
So a small to mid-sized company didn't really know much about IT, would have some app idea, and they would get it developed by some offshore development shop. India's very, very common place where these things are done, and they get what's in essence a proof of concept,
Hmm.
right? Development shops aren't in the business of hosting. They can't host a scalable infrastructure for anything.
Right.
Moreover, most of the code written isn't scalable either. But these non-IT companies don't know that. They get the thing, it looks like it's doing what they asked it to do, and they're happy. And then 6 months later, it's falling over because it wasn't architected to be a scalable environment. So that's how we got to start. We took several of those over, and then we took over the code, built a real hosted environment that could scale, and then we would upgrade the code and do feature development ongoing. Yeah, and that worked fine. And referrals are enough there for probably 5 or so years where we kept getting people going, oh, these guys saved my life. You need to talk to them. And we've never lost a client where we actually did that. But what I realized is that was a slow growth model,
Mm.
waiting for somebody to tell somebody else about me. And we had a website, but it was a very techie website. It really wasn't, the messaging wasn't all that great. So a few years ago, I decided we need something more on the subscription side, right? Because we had, a couple eggs in, right? We only had a couple eggs in the basket. We needed more eggs in the basket, even though they probably were a lower revenue type stuff, but they would be beachhead services. So we started doing things like hosting, IT security, right, and those kind of things as services. And then these assessments kind of grew out of that, and so we started getting, more referrals. I started networking a little bit more, and now we're getting more serious about our own marketing. To your point, more on social. We send out a monthly newsletter, or I blog every month, and we're not doing ad buys. I'm not sure we ever will do that, because I don't know that our market is right for that, because what we do is kind of not, it's business to business. So,
Difficult to
there's
find
always,
that niche to communicate with.
yeah, there's always that limitation. So we developed the subscription side, which is driving the lead gen and the sales iteration, right? From a CRM standpoint, you got leads coming in from marketing, however they get there, and then your sales team picks them up, vets them, qualifies them, and moves them into the deal process, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where we are, is we're growing out that marketing activity to develop the lead gen. And most of that is on the subscription side, because those are the kind of transactions that lend themselves to that kind of marketing and sales. Yeah. And so the hope is that the other side of the house, where we're doing all the heavy duty development, right, and hosting and support, grow out of the relationships we establish on the service side. And it has happened. We've had a few that come out of that. So that's the growth model.
Yeah, I think it adds more volume to the uh building horizontally, right? Knowing that once you have a few kind of on that lower ticket stuff, moving them or migrating them up to other or more advanced services, that's easier than trying to acquire a brand new customer who comes to your business as a complete stranger. So
Oh my God, yes. The cheapest work is horizontal, right? New work for existing clients from acquisition standpoint, for sure. And the way you get that is by moving up the trust chain, right? You want that, right? And trust takes time to develop, right? So the more you do, right? The more they trust you, and the more they view you as a partner. Then they say, well, I got this thing, or they'll refer you if they trust you. They won't refer you if they don't trust you. So it's another way to grow referrals too, is, if your clients trust you, doesn't matter what small thing you do for them, right? We learned that there's nothing too small to build trust on. And once you built that trust, they're going to come to you for the next thing they need and the next thing they need. And so that's our model, and it's been working. And I think we're prone for explosive growth, which scares me, because that means I need to bring on, more resources and that kind of stuff.
right. That was my next question for you, Mike, was do you openly collaborate with new people as you're kind of building things out, or do you like to keep things in-house and hire for that kind of stuff?
So I'm kind of trained in the ITIL service delivery model from my years in the Fortune 100 world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of disciplines in IT to deliver services, right? So as I was building the company out, I intentionally deferred on things that I didn't necessarily need right away, because I wasn't big enough, right? And we've grown and shrunk some over the years. COVID had an effect. It had an effect on everyone. So we had some, scaling down as a result of COVID, and new scale back up. So, but we're built to do that, right? So,
Right.
I think, as far as capabilities go, I've outsourced things several times. I've outsourced marketing in its entirety at one point, and found that I didn't have quite as much control as I wanted. I've outsourced web design, because we're coders. We're not content design branding people, right? That's more of a kind of a marketing thing. Don't get me wrong. We could build a website as fast as anyone, but it's not going to be, make the magazines as one of the great websites of the year, right? We know that. So if it's a utilitarian thing, or if it's something, we do all of that stuff. I mean, we build custom apps and custom UIs and all of that, but we're not trying to win design awards. So in those cases where we think we might need some more horsepower in a specific area, of course, we'll go out for that. I believe in doing what you do well and paying others to do what they do well. So there are always opportunities to partner on things.
Mm.
And I think those are also opportunities to learn. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
we're evolving. We try to always evolve. We brought most of our marketing operations and marketing management in-house from being totally outsourced where we weren't getting what we wanted.
Mm.
So we said, hey, it's probably cheaper for us, better in the long term because we get to learn it. As long as we have the skills to do it well, we'll do it. If we don't have the skills to do it well, we won't do it. Because that's the fastest way to lose trust. Is try to do something you can't do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that adds up.
yeah.
On that note, Mike, as we kind of come to a close with our time together here, I wonder if maybe you can look into the future for us and kind of give us an idea of, what cool things are coming down the pipeline. What are you aiming at for growth and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So you did mention AI in the intro, and I just want to kind of touch on that as far as a future thing. So I did a YouTube video on this my channel that I had up for about a year and a half, 2 years ago, which I'm going to restart again, but I lost track on that. But I did an article on AI. And so I've been around long enough to remember when BI came out and kind of all of these marketing buzzwords, right? So BI was nothing new. It was just marketing spin on, reporting capabilities. AI is not really artificial intelligence. Anybody who's it has any understanding of what AI really is knows that it's not self-learning. It's not sentient, right? It's just somebody's programming the algorithms, right? And without that human programming the algorithms, there's no AI. Is it getting better? Sure. It's machine learning is what it essentially is, right? I think we're decades away. I hope at least I'm gone by the time Skynet emerges, right? So, but that doesn't mean that there's not use and utility in what's being called AI today. And we use it. We use it for help in kind of scaffolding out presentations or documentation or verbiage, or even on the code side, our guys are using it, in their IDEs when they're developing code to help them do it faster. Does it replace quality on code or content or no? Right. So, especially in the marketing world, like, if you're in marketing that people buy based on emotion, they don't buy based on fact. Right. So all the facts being equal, the one that delivers that message with the most emotional attachment to the person listening is going to get the deal. Right. And AI can't write that. Right. It can give you the facts. So at the lower levels of content development, AI is helpful in getting the facts and structuring the facts for you. But the real value in content development is that human emotional attachment to the thing you're selling. And in that respect, so you're going to get rid of some of the lower level, lower quality, right? Content developers in lieu of AI, but the ones that are really good, you're never going to get rid of because you're always going to need that human element. AI can't write that. Same thing on the code side, right? The code, yeah, right. The AI can kind of help you structure it, but it can't get you all the way there. And so, do I think that's going to get better over the next 5 to 10 years? Probably, but I don't think you can ever remove the human element, especially when you're trying. When the buy decisions aren't being made by AI, they're being made by humans. And so, if AI was doing all the buys, it was making all the buy decisions, then this conversation would be moot, but they're not, and they won't be because I don't know any human that's going to give over their purse to their AI tomorrow, right? So where do I think the market's going? I mean, I hear all this stuff about the metaverse, and I see all this stuff about the metaverse. Those things tend to take time, right? I see a lot of divergence between web and mobile now with performance web applications and those kind of things where native app development is kind of going away. a lot of that is self-inflicted, I think, by the Apples and the Googles of the world, by making the barrier too high of entry, where Apple says, well, we don't think your app is valuable enough for our clients or Apple phone users, so we're not going to approve it for the Play Store. Those kind of things for businesses they don't understand. Like, this is almost like violation of your First Amendment right to build an app for anybody who wants it. Just because Apple sold me the phone, they get to determine what I get to put on it or not put on it. So those kind of things are, I think, moving away. And you're starting to see the barriers coming down between browser and what, and mobile. And I think even device, right? The ability to push to wearables, watches, glasses, blah, 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 I think is something that you're going to see more. We're going to see more and more of. And marketing to those things, you're going to see more and more of. So I think those are things that we need to be ready for in the coming years, for sure.
I think some of your predictions are spot on, Mike. I know that there is class action right now against Apple for discriminatory and nefarious business practices, and among other big players in the game who have really monopolized the opportunities that exist. And so I think we'll see a leveling of the playing field in the not too distant future here, and hopefully there's the right people in the right place to take advantage of that.
At risk of trying to sound like an oracle, I've just been around. I've seen this kind of stuff. A year ago, I was interviewing on AI, and I said, "You're going to see class action suits for copyright violation."
Oh
Because
yeah,
where are they getting all of this content? Show me a website on the internet that doesn't have copyright notice on or trademark, right? So how are they possibly, right? So how are they possibly giving you this content that's someone else's copyright material, right? I
right.
mean, it's a foregone conclusion. Now, the lawsuits that are around now aren't that yet, but they kind of are, and they're going to be, right? And so enforcing a copyright law is tough. I get it, but class action suits, man, if there's enough money on the other side, like Microsoft or Google or Apple or some of these monster technology companies who I think are just, I'm a little guy, right? I'm all about privacy and data protection and all of those things for the little guy. These guys, I talk to marketing people all the time, and they want to do geofencing and they want to know all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this is all privacy stuff that, you're making my head hurt, right? So
Yeah.
it's technology and marketing go together a lot, but they oppose each other a lot too, especially when you start talking about data security, where marketing benefits from poor data security, right? And IT is hurt by poor data security and vice versa. So there's always that tension between the two. I think it's healthy, but I think that the big technology companies are leaning more toward commoditizing your data
Right.
than they are toward giving you value as an individual. So they're trying to make money on you as the product instead of selling you valuable services to you as a person or a business, which I think is dangerous for them. And will probably end up in, they'll end up in antitrust suits. I think it's already happening with Google. You see it now,
Yeah.
it's happening, where they're going to probably be broken up because they're so blatant in their abuse of data privacy that, and the monopolization of Google in the search engine, for example. I think you're going to see a lot of dispersion of some of the technologies that they own forcibly through antitrust. I think we're going to see that in the coming years. It's kind of pendulum swung too far this way. Now it's going to swing back the other way, which will create a lot of opportunities for the small and mid-sized guys.
Yeah, the ones who are present to the current state of the union. At risk of sounding like a conspiracy theorist, any law that has a fine as the consequence is only a law there for the poor. And so when a big company comes in and steals all this information, I'm sure somewhere along the lines there was a budget for class action lawsuit fine.
Yeah, legal fees.
Right. Yeah. Under the legal fee terms. So they're gonna take the information whether or not we like it. It's just what we're going to get compensated for that information on the other side at some point in time. And who knows if you don't even know that that class action lawsuit's taking place and you can't prove that it was your data that was stolen, you're still not even going to benefit from it on the other side. So all in the name of advancing innovation and technology, right?
Well, I think you're right. Well, I think there's forcible ways the government can force them to disband through antitrust, right?
Hmm.
But where the real pain isn't in civil, right? Which is where most of this stuff happens. It's in criminal,
Right.
and that's a much harder thing to prove. To your point, but that's that I think is where the rubber really meets the road. You're not going to see any meaningful change in data privacy unless either there's some criminal action from it, or there's a groundswell from the poor of us to protect our data. And it's hard because most people don't care enough to turn location off on their phone, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like,
Right.
that's just the way it is. So,
Yeah. It's
I don't,
uncertain times that we live in, Mike. And
yeah.
as we come to a close here, I wonder, in parting words, if you could share a bit of advice for those of us out here navigating this complex waters of technology and innovation.
Yeah, I think the biggest deficit I see day in, day out is small businesses assume that they're immune to cyber attack.
Mm,
When in fact, more than almost half, 48%, I think was the last number I saw, of of all cyber attack is against small business. Yeah,
wow.
which is a scary number. And I think the assumption of nobody knows I'm here, the security through obscurity kind of model, is a very dangerous assumption to make. And we're constantly, I just got a call from, one of my networking partners today. She's in healthcare. And she said, one of my people got hacked. What do I do? I go, well, the first thing you do is reset the password. The second thing you do is, you got to enable some multi-factor authentication. Third thing you do is scan, right? So they have no antivirus. They're not using two-factor authentication, all kind of basic things that you should do, especially if you're in healthcare. Oh my God, release some PII out there or PHI out into the wild. That's the fastest way to get your business shut down, right? So I just think there's just not enough attention. One of the reasons we started doing security services is because most of the security companies aren't trying to help the little guy. They're trying to sell to the whales. They want the big guys. So we took a couple years and put together a package that was, good for the little guy. But I would tell anyone, if the safest thing you can do in regards to being online is not be online. Get offline. No, seriously, go to pens and paper, pads. Fax machines are probably more secure. Believe it or not, it sounds funny, but it's probably true. But if you're going to be online, you better be serious about securing your stuff because somebody's going to get it. I'm in a room. I ask who's never been hacked, and nobody raises their hand. Everyone's been hacked at least once, and some people multiple times. If you hack more than once and you didn't change your behavior, what's wrong with you? What do you think's going to happen? They're going to forget about you. You know what I mean? So if I'd give any advice, it'd be like, be serious about your own security, man. You don't leave your car running in front of the Piggly Wiggly with the key and then the door open. Why would you do that with your technology stuff? Right?
Sound advice, Mike.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. CMHworks.com. We have a form on there. You can fill it out for anything, and I'll get notified immediately and be happy to talk to anybody. If you're, I do podcasts. We're actually kicking off a small business podcast in a month or so, but I love talking about technology. It's a passion of mine. It's always been, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Wonderful. I appreciate how generous you were with your time and your wisdom here today, Mike. So Thanks for joining me on the call. We'll make sure to link to all your contact in the show notes. And on that note, anybody that's watching or listening, if you want to get in touch with me and my team for any reason, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the next.